Hello, it's Casie Menhinick with eXp Realty. Did you miss our Zoom conference today at noon to 1 p.m. with Jackie Van Vliet from CIBC? She's a wealth management advisor that was able to take some time to talk to me today about the benefits of planning early for your retirement and the different options that are out there. So take a moment, sit back, relax, and join us for our webinar. Thank you. Introducing myself, I'm Casie Menhinick. I'm a licensed real estate agent with eXp Realty. I specialize in the rural communities, but I do everything from rural to luxury properties, both as a listing agent and a buyer's agent. This past year, I did take my designation as a senior real estate specialist. So I am focusing a lot of my marketing on the 55 plus community to help gather more resources for people in those rural areas. And I think upon my own personal research and learning, we're entering into a whole new time with the number of people that are actually going to be retiring between, I think it was 2012 and 2030, where we're going from like 1 in 7 people per year retiring to 1 in 4. So we're going to have a huge switch in demographics coming up here. And I think, like we were talking just prior to starting, is there's a lot of people that haven't started planning for their retirement when they were 30 even, and building the wealth that they're going to need to live comfortably. And we are living longer. And I think a lot of people don't understand that, maybe before, when we saw more multi-generational living and grandma or grandpa would be moving in with a family. Families are so spread out, or they're blended families now, and that dynamic doesn't always work. And then we have the 55 plus. 55 seems so young. I hate it.
That's right.
Then we have the people who have still been working up to the age of 75, which I think is actually fairly common these days, where we're seeing people try to maintain their activity but keep some money coming in. But it's starting to become a bit of a hardship, especially mentally and physically, if commuting or traveling or technology aren't working for them anymore. So that's why it was important for me to meet with you today, to be able to provide further resources for the people, not just within my community, but all over the region. So maybe you can just tell me a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Yeah, for sure. So welcome everyone. I'm just really excited that you're watching this recording, and I'm glad you're listening to this information. Whether this is the first time hearing this or the 10th or the gazillionth time, I just really want you to be able to take some information away and apply it to your life right away. So my name is Jackie Van Vliet. I'm an investment advisor with CIBC Private Wealth. And Casie and I connected about a year ago. I actually started stalking her on social media. I just really admired the way she was conducting her business. I just think that purchasing and selling homes, it's not just transactional, but it's more about the relationship. And I can see that she really puts the client at the center of what she does. And that really resonated with me because it's how I conduct my business as well. So although my title, as you'll see, is investment advisor, it's for me about so much more than just the investments. It's about getting to know my clients and their families and ensuring that we create a custom tailored plan to achieve their goals. So we come up with strategies to preserve more of the person's wealth, whether that be through tax planning, estate planning, and investment solutions. So our topic today is planning for retirement and life. So thinking about retirement, it often comes with excitement for some people, and it can also cause some anxiety for some people. And it requires a lot of planning. So that's what we'll be discussing today. Before you plan, you need to look at what you want in life, in your retirement. So let's dive into that. So today we'll be talking about the current retirement landscape, including some relevant economic and demographic information. Then we'll discuss some topics that span 3 different stages of retirement planning. So in setting the stage, we'll take a closer look at what it takes to determine the cost of your retirement lifestyle. That seems to be something that people always want to know. How much is it going to take? Then we'll discuss managing your investments in retirement. Next, we'll look at taking the leap. And in that section, we'll discuss turning your savings into retirement income and review your tax strategy. And then lastly, we'll discuss establishing your legacy, which includes passing on of your wealth to the next generation. And normally I do kind of a Q&A session at the end. So maybe Casie will have some questions for me, but feel free to jump in at any point. I just want it to be like a conversational sort of presentation today. So
I'll have lots of questions.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. Well, a lot of clients get put into a position where they're not really sure of their next steps, or they don't realize about tax implications, and they don't understand about cost of living as they retire. So there's no doubt some of those questions that have come across my desk, so that I can provide the right resources to my clients making these transitional choices. I can put those across to you too today. So that's great. So I'm really looking forward to this.
Perfect. Okay. So this slide is showing you what the retirement landscape is like today. So at birth, life expectancy for women is 84 years old, while for men it's 80 years old. And then when we make it to age 65, our life expectancy actually changes. So for women, it becomes 87, and for men, it's 84. And the reason why that is because some people are born with or develop certain illnesses. So once you make it to 65, then you're kind of past that. So people are living longer, like Casie mentioned before, and therefore many are spending more time in retirement. So it's important to carefully plan for this stage. It really depends on the age you decide to retire, but many people need to plan for 25 to 30 years of retirement income. A general rule of thumb is that you'll need about 70 to 80% of your current income in retirement. So there are, like, these are very generalizations, and some people will need a lot more. They want to do a ton of traveling, and some people will need less. So let's assume that you'd like to have about $40,000 after tax per year of retirement income, and you will live in retirement for 30 years. You will need to have approximately $1.2 million to cover your needs. So we'll discuss later in the presentation about what the sources of income are, because that number might scare some people, and it's going to come from different sources. It's not just your savings. So how financially prepared are you for retirement? So 77% of Canadians are worried about having enough money in retirement. 11% don't have enough savings and will rely solely on CPP and or OAS payments, and we'll talk about what those are in a little bit. 26% are not confident with the retirement plan they have put in place, and 35% worry about outliving the savings they have set aside for retirement. So good planning can be the difference between only getting by and living the life you truly want in your retirement. It's important to note that with any life changes, you should reassess your situation because your needs may have changed. And so just having a financial plan from, say, 10 years ago, it might need to be updated. The good news is that those who have financial plans worry less about money than those without plans. According to Financial Planning Standards Council, the value of financial planning and new evidence of the value of advice, 50% of those who have a plan say they are on track to meet their retirement goals versus 22% who do not have a plan. Those with a plan have a stronger sense of well-being, and they feel more confident about achieving a comfortable retirement. So now that we have an idea of the retirement landscape, we'll get into the 3 stages of retirement planning. So first, we're going to set the stage. Those of you who are not retired yet, this is for you. We're going to talk about some of the things you need to do and think about now to start preparing. Then we're going to talk about taking the leap into retirement. There are some key things to be thinking about as you transition into retirement. And then once you're there in retirement, what are some things that you can do to help plan for your needs and passing on of your estate? So let's discuss common questions and actions you can take now to set the stage for your retirement. The first action to take is to think about what you want your retirement lifestyle to look like. So will you be traveling? Some people work part-time, so is that something that interests you? Will you volunteer? What hobbies will you pursue? Will you spend more time with your family? And also, when do you want to retire? So that is a really key piece here to know how much you need to have saved. So once you have an idea of what your retirement looks like and the age, that's when you can actually start to crunch the numbers. So let's map out your retirement income and expenses. How much do I need to save for retirement is the magic question that I get asked all the time. And it is hard to have a blanket statement answer because it's different for every person. So like I mentioned before, a common recommendation is 70 to 80% of your current after-tax income, but it depends. It could be 50% or 120%, and that all depends on the lifestyle that you want to lead. So that's why the slide before is really driving that home, that you need to know what you want to do in retirement. So some of your expenses may drop, such as liabilities of your mortgage or contributing to your child's education, things like that. But some expenses might actually increase if you plan to do a lot of travel. Again, that is a huge piece to it.
Sorry to interrupt, do you feel that some people also put in sort of a contingency fund for the unexpected? I can imagine those that are 65 and have been living a healthy lifestyle, but then all of a sudden do have a disease or illness or sick family member that they now have to care for or financially support. That could become a real curveball in what their original plan was.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Having that sort of in your mind that those things can come up and drastically change, it might be a matter of changing your expectations in retirement, right? So if you had planned to do a lot of travel and you had money set aside for that, you might have to then reassess whether you can do that. But having, that in your mind that could be potentially something that could happen, you might want to have set aside another bucket of money on top of what you plan to use in retirement, for sure. It's a good point. So take the time to understand what the costs are. So go through what your expenses are currently for your transportation, your living, your healthcare, leisure. If you have any debts that you think are going to, transition through to retirement, take into account inflation. So hopefully inflation won't be as high as it currently is forever. But on average through the last about 20 years, it's been 3.5%. So you definitely want to take that into account. Consider if there might be any changes in living costs based on the area that you live, and definitely have an emergency fund for unplanned expenses. So that is kind of what Casie was talking about, but over and above just an emergency fund for potentially your car breaks down, you want to have maybe a separate contingency fund for those bigger expenses that could happen if it's something to do with your health or helping a family member.
I would guess it's just like configuring your regular monthly budget when you're adding up what your current costs of living are, and knowing that maybe you have 5% set aside to have for your vacation fund or the emergency fund, and you don't use that, it can then be shifted somewhere else when needed.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. So just to estimate, if you want to estimate what your magic number might be, write down what your current yearly income after tax is, and then calculate based on 80%. So you would times that by 0.8, and then times that number by 25, which is the years that you might spend in retirement. You might also want to use 30 if you think that you're going to retire earlier. And this will be kind of just a rough estimate number of what you might need in retirement.
So for example, if you are hoping to retire at the age of 55 and you're in good health and everything, and you're going to figure as a female you're going to live to 85, then you would use that 30% figure.
To 30 years. Yeah.
Versus
Totally.
if you've just started out in your career and you know that you're not going to be retiring at 55 and you're going to try and hold out to 65, or in some cases, I'm sure we see it more commonly 70, that we can lessen what that calculation is to take that financial strain off of what you need to save to get there. Okay.
Yeah, for sure. And really, we'll see just in a few minutes that, you know, the longer you wait to retire, I mean, it's a delicate balance because you want to enjoy your retirement and you want to be healthy and able-bodied to do the things you want to do. But it does, you know, lessen the burden and the anxiety if you do continue working a few extra years, because some of the government benefits that you can get, if you delay those, they're going to benefit you in the future. So we'll talk about that here. So what are the sources of retirement? Basically, when you retire, you want to create a retirement paycheck is what we call it. So these are kind of the different buckets of money that you can put into that paycheck. So there are government benefits, including CPP, which is the Canada Pension Plan, and OAS, which is Old Age Security. There's also something called GIS, which is a Guaranteed Income Security, and that is for low income. And we'll talk about what these amounts look like on the next slide. Some people have an employer pension. So today, about 38% of Canadians have a company pension plan. There's also your personal savings, which will include your RRSPs, TFSAs, and any non-registered accounts. And then real estate and business interests can help round out the available assets. So you might own a property rental that will provide some rental income, or you might have some shares in a business where you continue to draw from that in retirement. So let's go into what the numbers are. So here are the different buckets of retirement income. CPP, or Canada Pension Plan. So this is calculated based on the dollar amount and number of years that you contributed. So the maximum benefit for 2023 is $1,300 approximately per month, but the average Canadian retiree actually only receives about $720 per month. So many people ask, why is that such a big gap in between? So the yearly maximum annual pensionable earnings threshold is currently $66,600. So if you're earning less than that, then you're not contributing the maximum amount to CPP. So if someone was earning less at some points in their career, they wouldn't have contributed the full amount to CPP. There's also potentially years where they left the workforce or they entered the workforce later in life, etc.
I'm guessing that's a question that you'll answer as we work through the slides, but that would be my question for families where one partner did stay home and raise the children and never received any or contributed to CPP. They basically don't have anything coming to them, or if they still are married by the time retirement rolls around, does that check get split between the two?
You can, and yes, and you should, because if one spouse was not working, it's going to be it's a lot more tax efficient to split that. And there's also other key things to think about with income splitting that we'll get to. Thank you for bringing that up. That's awesome. So while you can start receiving your full CPP at 65, you can receive a reduced amount if you start between 60 and 65, or an increased amount, so up to 42% more if you start receiving between 65 and 70. So if you delay receiving the CPP, you actually receive over 7% more per year if you delay that. So that is something to consider for sure.
Is that taxable? Sorry, is that taxable income?
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah. So OAS, which stands for Old Age Security, is a non-work related pension paid to Canadians who are over 65 and over. So you won't have to have worked to receive this one. And the OAS payments do start getting clawed back if the person has an income of over 82,000. So let's just say someone is starting to take the money out of their retirement, their RSP becomes a RIF, which we'll talk about in a second. If you are withdrawing some money from that and you're receiving your CPP and you're receiving OAS, it might actually get up to that 82,000 per year. And that's when you start actually getting that payment clawed back. So you may also have a pension from work, which provides you with pension income. So there are different types depending on the company that you work for. There's a basic company pension plan. There's a defined benefit plan, which you get a set amount each year regardless of investment returns. And a defined contribution plan is a pension plan that is a fixed amount based on accumulated contributions, and it is based on investment earnings from that one. And then the other sources of income, of course, are your own savings. So those will be your RSP, which turns into a RIF, and your TFSAs and your non-registered investments. So keep in mind that even though on the screen these buckets look like they're all like the same size, the majority of your retirement income should be from your savings and investments. You don't want to have to rely solely on one bucket, especially if they're not entirely in your control.
I have another question.
Yeah.
So with the big shift in demographics, with the baby boomers that supported our CPP and old age security funds for so long, now out of the workforce are leaving at a drastic pace, is there ever concern that we're not feeding those funds enough to support the younger generations?
For sure. I am terrified about that, and I don't know what the answer is. Like, I totally agree. If more people are retiring than entering the workforce, like how are we going to keep up with that? I don't know.
And my other question too with the wealth planning or retirement planning is, because BC is such a multicultural province and we do have higher rates of immigration, probably even in BC alone, and so permanent residents that are people who become permanent residents, will they have the entitlement to CPP and OAS as well?
No, so with CPP, you have to have been a resident of Canada to receive those years of contribution, right? Like, so definitely no on the CPP. On the OAS.
So for new immigrants that are coming to Canada and they're here to stay, financial planning, retirement planning is just a whole other dynamic, really, because they're going to have so many other, or they're going to have less sources of retirement income to pull from, because what we contribute to in BC or Canada is probably very different than what we've seen or what they may have lost in order to become residents here and have more opportunities for their families.
Yeah, yeah. They may be able to take some other type of government benefit. I know there are some that are specifically for them, and I don't know a lot about them, to be honest with you. It's something that I should look into.
I only ask because I've had international students as employees before, and you know, the way immigration works now is many people are sending family over to do an academic degree so that other family members can come over and get permanent residency. And you see the hardships that people are going through in order to have safety and security, and to go through all of those hoops now to have to worry about where you're going to be at in 20 years when you're a new Canadian. You know, it definitely would be nice to see more awareness on that aspect as well.
For sure. These are the things that aren't talked about, right?
Oh, they aren't.
It's really unfortunate. So once you have these amounts in front of you, so we talked about calculating what, you know, that magic number might be for you, and then looking at what those buckets of money are potentially coming in, you can determine whether there is a gap. So here are a few strategies that you can implement if there is one. So kind of an easy one, manage your expectations for the future. So if your plans included lots of travel or large purchases, you may need to modify your plans. Look for opportunities to reduce your expenses in some way in order to accelerate your savings. Review your investments. So are you maximizing your employer-sponsored RSP or pension contributions? Determine if there are any opportunities there to maximize any potential returns. Delay your retirement a couple of years. I know people don't like hearing this one, but that could make a huge change to your outlook and your stress level. And so if it's going to help you enjoy the years that you are retired, that is something that you can definitely look into. And get creative. What's that?
I think the whole work part-time is just such a nice dynamic to think about if you enjoy your work, but you know, you travel 6 months and you know that you have to work 6 months. It's the security.
Totally. And it gives people something to do. I find people love those months when they first retire and then they get bored.
Yeah.
They're like, you know, my sense of purpose is kind of gone unless they're really involved with their grandkids or something. There is a piece missing. And so you're right, like even just working very part-time could be a huge, huge help.
I think it can be isolating for many people, let alone, again, I specialize in the rural areas. It's a big distance to get to where other family may be. And it's the number one thing I hear when I have clients that are in their 70s and still working, but can't maybe manage their larger homes anymore with everything they're juggling, is they don't know what to do. They don't want to travel. They need structure. They need the community of their work. So it's a good idea for them. But at the same time, you don't want to be so dependent on it that if you do want to take downtime, you can.
That you can, totally. Yeah, that's a good point. The last is to get creative. So you can downsize to a less expensive home, consider a reverse mortgage potentially, or generate income by renting out part of your home. There's also starting a side business. There are so many ways to get creative.
I'm seeing that more like for my own resources that we've got now, the multi-generational tax credit. I talk to people about the reverse mortgage so that they can age in place, maybe put in a basement suite because they only ever stay on one level of their house anyways. And how is this going to give you not just security of income coming in, but potentially maybe someone to help with the maintenance of the home to protect your investment in the future too.
Sure, for sure. Yeah. There are so many great new things that people can do to get creative.
One thing that's come across my desk a few times, which I would put in that get creative category, is I've had several clients now retire out of country. So they're liquidating their assets here in BC, basically, and they're purchasing homes in other countries. So I've had them move to, well, Costa Rica's been on the top of the list for quite a few of my clients. I've had people moving to Texas because you can buy, you know, property for a fraction of the cost that you can here in BC.
Yeah, their money goes there, right?
And then they come back to stay with family for a few months and they get their medical care here and everything still. So it's interesting, you know, obviously it's going to work for a smaller percentage of Canadians that are retiring, but it is that get creative and what people are thinking about doing now.
I love that. I'm going to add that to my notes for sure. So this might be helpful in managing your expectations for the future. So there's a possibility you won't be able to do everything. And a lot of this comes down to planning and whether or not you've done that planning well. It doesn't mean that you need to throw out your dreams. You just need to maybe clearly define them by making them SMART. So S is for specific. The more specific your goal, the easier it is to understand what you're trying to achieve. Make it measurable by setting targets that allow you to track your progress. Make sure the goal or your goals are attainable. So give your financial situation and resources. Just make sure that that is, you know, something that you can do. Make them relevant on whether or not they align with your values and what's truly important to you. And then lastly, make sure they're time bound by setting a specific time frame. these are just some easy ways to reduce your spending. So look at your monthly bills, and you can look at ways to cut back on your expenses, from late payment interest, excessive phone plans, all those memberships that we sign up for that we kind of forget about.
Guilty.
So many of them. It's amazing. Like my husband and I just,
there should be a whole other segment about financial tracking, and it really should start with being in school. Like they should better financial awareness and budgeting when the kids are still young. But we spreadsheet everything in our family. We pretty well pay for it all on a credit card, and we put it on a spreadsheet at the end of the month, and we see exactly where our money's going. And it's amazing. And I know, because I had 5 young kids at home, one that was a stepchild. But yeah, if your grocery bill all of a sudden is $1,700 a month, you need to figure out how you're going to eat differently. And just some simple cuts can really save you a lot of money.
Huge. Yep. And it's awesome that you're like involving your kids in that, right? Because they will take those habits and go on to continue doing that. As I know some of your kids are adults already, but
they're all adults, but they hear me say it all the time, because they're all country kids and then they move to towns. And I'm like, add it up, like going to Starbucks every day, and it's $5 a coffee times 5 days a week. That's $100 a month. Now you're $1,200 a year. Do you want Starbucks coffee, or do you want to go to Mexico? Which one is it? Or do you want to pay rent for a month? Like it's the financial awareness that we don't think about when we're just putting out $5, $5. But at the end of the day, if you spent 20, we're getting into some pretty big numbers that could be used for down payment on a house, a mortgage payment, retirement savings, so many different things.
So many things. It's so true. It's good to put that in perspective. So create a budget and look at what your cash flow is to identify how you are spending your money. So look for opportunities to alter your discretionary spending, just like we're talking about. So if you're buying takeout quite often, considering limiting that to once a week, once a month, whatever you can do. Increase your savings. So definitely don't wait until it's too late to check that your savings are going to meet your needs. A regular investment plan can really help you stay disciplined. Look for opportunities to save more. So in addition to your paycheck, sometimes people don't think about bonuses or commissions or pay increases, gifts or extra income from rental property. Identify those ahead of time and make sure you allocate that money to something that you want for your long-term goals, whether that's putting it into a bucket to save for a down payment or making sure that that's going towards your retirement savings. It's important to track your spending now. So expenses early in retirement tend to be very similar to what you're spending right before retirement. We often receive a question on whether you should put money towards your retirement savings or focus on paying down debt. And it's really a mathematical one. So you want to look at what your interest costs are and whether you can consolidate any payments, whether there are options to lower your payments or ways to repay that debt faster. So sometimes interest rates, when interest rates and debt are low and investment returns at the risk you're comfortable with are higher, it may make sense to invest rather than pay down debt. Right now, I wouldn't really say that that's the correct way to go about it, because
1 year ago, though, 1 year ago, yes, because obviously I have a huge network of mortgage brokers that I deal with. And that was definitely something several of my clients took advantage, was just a home equity line of credit or reverse mortgage to consolidate those higher interest debts and have more financial freedom moving forward. And thankfully they did do it a year ago because they locked in. So now, like, it's not like we did a big renovation on our home. We wouldn't do that now because it's too expensive. We're not going to get a return on our investment based on doing something at today's interest rates. So
that just goes to show, it's funny that you mentioned that, because people are like, well, why does the increase of interest rates going up affect the entire economy? And that's exactly what it is. It's the trickle down effect of, you know, people are not doing their renovations, which affects all the businesses that provide renovations, all the trades. Like, you don't see the trickle down of one decision that someone makes based on the borrowing cost to what that does to the economy, right? So it is interesting. I'm going to quickly go over this. It's important to pay yourself first by setting up an automated transfer between your bank and investment accounts. It's just an effective and hassle-free way to save, and you're not going to think twice about it. Just make sure that that is like a payment that you are making to your future self, right? This is just a basic budgeting rule that we kind of teach, is that essentials should account for about 50% of your income. So these are things like food, utilities, housing, taxes. The next is savings. So a good rule of thumb is to invest about 20% into the future you, whether that's for long-term or shorter-term goals that you have. And then you're left with 30% for your lifestyle, and this may include travel, entertainment, memberships, etc. So just a few small tips. You can start small. So there's no set amount of money. I know I said here 20%, but if that seems like a huge jump for you, start smaller, and then you can change that as your priorities and your income change. Make it regular. So set up an automated bi-weekly or monthly transfer, and then prioritize that. So consider it just the same as paying a bill.
I think that's a good tip. I know I did it before I started putting a child through university. I had an automatic payment scheduled for myself that went into savings, and I knew, just like my mortgage payment or anything else, at the first of the month, I didn't have that money to use because it was going to pay a bill. Myself was the bill, but it was scheduled. If I have to rely on myself to just transfer some money into savings and put it there, I don't feel that I'm as consistent with it.
Right. Totally. Yeah. No, that's exactly right. So this here is showing you compound interest in action. So this refers to interest earned on your investment interest, or earnings on earnings in the case of investments that produce dividends and capital gains. So each of these three people, Chris, Emily, and Omar, they each put $500 monthly into an investment vehicle that returns 5% annually. Each of them start saving at different ages though. So as you can see in the chart, the best way to benefit from compound growth is to start early. So instead of taking interest or dividends in cash, you should definitely arrange to have that income reinvested in your chosen investment. Unless you're in your retirement stage, then you might be pulling that out as your income. Start investing early, as early as possible. Maximize your savings, especially in the early years, and make it a habit. I'm kind of going to go quickly through some of these slides because we're just having such good conversation, and I have
I'm taking up your time. Yeah.
No, it's good. It's really good. I think it's important to go over those like hot topics rather than some of these, because people can contact me and I can help them with any of this information. So looking at the asset mix in your portfolio is really going to depend on three factors. So your goals, your time horizon, and your tolerance for risk. It's important to set long-term investment strategies according to your investment goals and risk profile and really stay the course. Some investors believe that individual security selection and market timing are the most important determinants of long-term portfolio performance. And this accounts for only 10% of returns. So numerous studies have shown us that more than 90% of the variability in long-term portfolio returns is determined by your asset allocation mix. So that's why it's really important to create this with someone who knows what they're talking about, and then stick to those parameters of your risk tolerance and time horizon. If you are concerned about meeting your retirement goals, one option is to consider revisiting your investment approach and your risk tolerance to determine whether a more aggressive approach of investing might be suitable for you. Remember that we're all living longer, and so your retirement income may need to last 30 years or more. These are some key considerations for business owners. Do you want me to just go through these slides? Do you want me to kind of go into detail? Do you feel like
I think we can probably go through the business portion a little bit quicker, because I don't find that my target audience all are business owners, and it's something that people can reach out to you directly on as well, just like all of the other things. For more detailed information, speaking to you direct about their own unique situation is obviously going to be most beneficial. But let's still touch on it. I'm obviously a business owner, so
yeah. So these are kind of key considerations if you are planning on selling your business. So in the next 10 years, it's estimated that 7 out of 10 small to medium-sized businesses plan to exit, with about half of those planning to sell to a third party. So it's just, it's important to keep these things in mind, knowing what your business is worth today. Get a valuation on your business. Have a strong management team to make sure that that transition is going to be seamless. You want to demonstrate steady growth. So even though you might know that you're going to be selling your business in the near future, don't stop and coast to the finish line. It can really diminish the value of your business. And potentially be prepared to offer financing. This can just open up the doors to many other potential buyers.
Well, I think there's just so many different kinds of businesses now, like what the value actually is in the business that's not tangible, like real estate related, versus what the actual business is and how much value remain in it. So
yeah, for sure. So there are different ways of either keeping or selling your business. So you want to ask yourself, what's going to happen to my business when I retire? Should you transfer to family? Are your children even interested in taking over? Do you have a strong management team that can take over? So in the keep category, grooming a successor, this involves choosing someone to be the business owner and operator. So handing your business over to a family member or an employee is a common way to pass on your legacy. So identify individuals who want to be included in the business and are a good fit to run it. And this requires a lot of consideration. An owner investor option. So this, it may not be suitable if you don't have anyone in your family or an employee that is suitable as a successor. You may still have an attachment to the business and want to continue to own the business, but hire out an experienced management team. There's also a hybrid approach. So this is where family members simply hold the shares but do not work in the business, and other family members are involved in the day-to-day business. And then there are 3 in the sell category. So you can sell to management, you can sell 100% to a strategic buyer, and that eliminates the potential for family conflict. And then selling a stake to a private equity firm. So this will allow you to tailor the transaction to suit the objectives of the shareholders regarding ongoing roles and ownership stakes. Okay, so let's discuss some of the common questions and actions you can take as you enter into retirement. So the first area we will look at is withdrawing from your investment accounts. So what is the right approach to drawing down your income in retirement? So some things to consider: the amount available to be withdrawn on a monthly or annual basis, how often you want to receive your money. So some people prefer it just one payment per year. Some people would like monthly, bi-weekly, quarterly. And then how taxation will impact the amount you receive from your investment and other income. To understand the tax implications, we need to know what the registered accounts are that will help us tax shelter our investments. So let's look at what those are. Both TFSAs and RSPs are integral pieces of a balanced portfolio. There's no right or wrong answer as to which you should prioritize, as both are very valuable, but there are certain circumstances where one might be better than the other depending on your own financial situation and your goals. So if you're saving for a long-term or short term, RSPs were designed primarily to provide long-term, for your long-term goals, your retirement. TFSAs, on the other hand, are more flexible, and so they can accommodate shorter term goals more easily. You can withdraw tax-free at any time for any reason. If you're looking to tax split income with your spouse, so both TFSAs and RSPs can be used for income splitting, but there are specific circumstances to take into account. So you can give your spouse money to contribute to their TFSA, and any income earned is not attributed back to you. So your spouse or partner can make tax-free withdrawals at any time. With a spousal or common law partner RSP, the contributions you make to that RSP will reduce the amount that you can contribute to your own RSP. So in addition, withdrawals from the spousal or common law partner plan will be taxed in your hands if they're made within the same calendar year or 2 subsequent years. After that point, however, the income earned on that initial contribution and any withdrawals made by your spouse will be taxable in their hands. And then there's just something to consider if you are eligible for government benefits. So because TFSA withdrawals do not count as income, they don't affect your eligibility for income tested federal government benefits. One thing to definitely mention here is, what is your tax bracket? So here are a couple of scenarios. If you're earning less than $50,000 per year, a TFSA should be funded first because you are in the lowest tax bracket, and reducing your taxable income is not going to further lower your tax rate. If you're earning between $50,000 and $98,000, you might want to consider funding both equally until you max out your TFSA, which for this year is $6,500. And if you're earning more than $98,000, in this case, your tax rate is approaching 40%, and therefore investing in an RSP will benefit you the most by bringing down your taxable income. So of course, the ideal strategy is that you contribute to and max out both of them, but I know it's not possible for some. And so it's definitely helpful to look at what the pros and cons of each are. I'll just pause there because I know that was a lot of information.
Well, it's my head. I'm thinking of all these different scenarios with the different benefits, and yet again, referring back to you and how important it is for people, again, more real estate related, that are thinking about what they're going to be doing with their equity in their homes, how long they're going to be committed to living in one home, and how they want, like, so you can borrow up to a certain amount out of your RSP for a down payment on a home. Yes. But you have to pay it back within a certain period of time. And so people are like, oh, I don't want to put any money in RSP because I want to buy a house in the next little while, or I need that money for a down payment. So explaining to them how they can get the advantage of tax savings by investing in their RSP, but still have access to that money to purchase a home. But if they plan to purchase a home, they're going to stay in for 20 years, they're not going to be able to pay back that money. They might want to rethink that process. So,
I know there's a whole planning piece with it. And the nice thing too about the first time home buyers with the RSP is that they don't pay tax on the withdrawal, right? Also, I was just going to mention it at the end of this slide here, but the first home savings account, which is new this year, people can start contributing to it, I think this spring. We haven't gotten a ton of information since it was announced that it was going to be opening this year, but you can save up to $40,000 tax-free on, and it basically combines the benefits of both the RSP and the TFSA as far as taxes go.
I've heard about that.
Oh yeah, it's really, really exciting.
They introduced so much stuff at the end of 2022. And so like, there's so many things as agents that we're just trying to gather all the pieces, or we're waiting for BCFSA to finish filling in the blanks on. So I actually hadn't heard about that. So any resources, send my way.
I will send you some for sure. Yeah, it's really, I think it's going to be really helpful for young people as well, but for parents to kind of get the ball rolling with their kids to start saving for their first home.
Well, so I have all adult children. My eldest is 27. he's been wanting now with his wife to purchase property for some time. They have their down payment saved up, but they have it in a savings account. They haven't invested it anywhere. It's been sitting there for, well, my sons have been saving up for some time. So for 7 years, it's been sitting in a savings account, and he could be maximizing the earning potential of that money or decreasing his tax base by putting that into an RSP or this new home buyer incentive. Interesting.
Yes, that will be hugely beneficial to him. And even if he knows he's, I mean, he could put it in high interest savings and get 3.8% right now. And then that's not even at risk, right? Anyway, I'll send you some information about that new account for sure. So there are some similarities and differences between these two accounts. So we'll just quickly go over them. So with an RSP, your contributions are tax deductible. Most people know that. Your investments grow tax-free, and you're basically tax deferring with this account. So if you pay yourself a salary from your business, it's important to note that any amount that you pay yourself as the salary is considered earned income. But if you pay yourself in dividends, it's not considered earned income, and so therefore it's not eligible towards your contribution room. So RSPs and TFSAs can both be made up of any number of investments: mutual funds, equities, GICs, high interest savings. And most people don't think about TFSAs that way because of how they're labeled. So a tax-free savings account, people assume that they just put money in there and it sits there, but you can definitely put any investments in there that you want. And so that really helps your money grow. And in fact, because you don't pay tax even when you withdraw the funds, we would even say if some of that money is going to be for your long-term goals, you should even be putting your most high-risk investments in there, along with some low risk in the case of having some shorter-term goals. So 18% of your income each year. So this year, 29,210 is the maximum contribution, and you do need to contribute by March 1st in order for it to count towards your last year's taxes. At the age of 71 or before, you can change your RSP over to a RIF, which becomes a registered retirement income fund. And amounts that you withdraw are not added back into the contribution room. And
that was something I wasn't aware of until I did my course for the seniors representative, is that I didn't realize that our RSPs basically stopped at the age of 71 and that you had to make a decision as to where that's going to be transferred to.
Yes. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, the contribution room, I should say with that is like Casie was just mentioning, if you are using it for the home buyers, you do have that room to put the money back in, and you're actually required to do so. Okay, so the TFSA, it is more flexible. You can withdraw at any time, could be for short or long-term goals. There's no tax on your withdrawals. Your investments grow tax-free, just like in an RSP, but your contributions are not tax deductible. So that's the main difference with the contributions. So the 2023 TFSA limit is $6,500. If you've never opened up a TFSA, which I'm surprised, some people have a non-registered account where they've got investments and they've never opened up a TFSA. So in that case, you can immediately contribute a total of $88,000 into your TFSA, provided you were at least 18 in 2009 and a registered or a resident of Canada throughout those years. Okay. Converting an RSP to a registered registered retirement income. There we go. I was like savings. No, it's income. Okay. So you continue to tax defer your funds until you actually withdraw. So there are two considerations, two key decisions that you need to make before you take it out. So the timing, RSPs can be converted to a RIF at any age, but you must do it at the age of 71. How much? So you can start the year after you open the RIF, or you have to start. And then the amounts are flexible based on your income requirements. So there is a minimum, but there is no maximum.
But the tax implications would be higher, obviously, if you were to withdraw it all in one lump sum versus have planned for how much you're going to pull from that REF to have a lesser tax.
Well, and you want to keep, you typically want to keep money in their growing tax deferred for the time being. So I have not seen it where people withdraw like huge amounts at that point. But I mean, everybody is different. I guess if you need to buy a home or something like that, where you have a large amount that you need to spend all at once. So a tip is your RIF investments are tax sheltered, just like an RSP, and they are only taxed as income when they are withdrawn. So the longer you hold them, the more your savings will grow tax-free.
We might be getting to this in a future slide, but I know this is something that you will discuss with people one-on-one, or we can have another Zoom. But can you will your RIF to a family member upon your death?
So your registered accounts can be passed to a spouse without there being any tax implications. But to be passed down to the next generation, or to really anyone, everything needs to be, it's basically sold upon the death of the person, just like real estate, right? So the tax
probate basically
are there. Yeah.
And again, with getting wealth advice and doing financial planning, you can learn about ways to not have to go through probate or have those higher tax implications as well.
Exactly. Yeah, for sure. And most of those ways are between spouses. There are like strategies with passing down wealth to the next generation, but as far as like the best case scenario for tax wise, it's between the spouses. So there are three tax strategies to consider in retirement. The first is looking at how investment income is taxed. So one of the ways you can minimize your taxable income is to structure your investment portfolio accordingly. There are three types of income from investments, and each of them are taxed in different ways. So 100% of income from interest is taxed at your full marginal income tax rate. So these are anything from fixed income like bonds, GICs, principal protected notes, even interest from savings accounts. Dividend income is taxed more efficiently than interest income. So you may receive dividend income from equities or stocks, and any ETFs or mutual funds that hold equity securities. So the dividends are included income at a grossed up rate, which is then offset by a dividend tax credit. It's a little bit complicated, but basically just keep in mind that it is taxed more efficiently than interest income. Capital gains is the most tax efficient. So the net capital gain, which is calculated by subtracting the total capital loss from the total capital gain, similar to real estate, only 50% of your net capital gain is taxable, effectively cutting it in half. So the portion of bars in red is what's taxed at your marginal tax rate. So as you can see, it's really important to structure your investments to ensure that you have the least tax efficient investments inside of your registered account. So pension income splitting. If you have a spouse or common law partner, you may have the opportunity to do pension splitting. You don't have to do that. You don't have to have a pension to do pension splitting. So if you have a pension or over 65 with a RIF, you can split up to 50% of pension payments or RIF withdrawals for tax purposes with your spouse or partner. So these payments can be taxed on the other spouse or partner's return. This may end up reducing tax for the couple, and to the extent income is reduced for the pension or RIF annuitant, it may mean income-based government benefits for that person are not reduced, which is a key piece as well.
So instead of like one person withdrawing $90,000 a year, if they divide it and now they're each splitting that at $45,000 each, they're in the lower tax margin. So they might not have those adjustments to their CPP or OAS.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. Another tax strategy I always like to mention is charitable giving. So a lot of people say that they want to give to charity when they pass away. There may be instances where when someone dies, they don't have a big tax bill. And so that money that they left to charity, that donation receipt isn't used. And so in some circumstances, it may make sense to start budgeting while you're alive and give that donation through retirement so that you can get that reduction of your taxes by using that donation tax credit. So this we don't have a ton to talk about because I have a whole piece on estate planning and all of that, but I know that Casie has gone over this in detail. So I do have just a couple of slides if we still have time, but then we'll just be able to wrap it up.
Yeah, sounds good.
Oh yeah, and we talked about this a little bit earlier, prepare for the unexpected. There are instances where kids move back into the parents' homes or where people need to help their parents somehow with living costs or healthcare costs. So 66% of parents are somehow supporting their grown children, and 42% of young adults between the ages of 20 to 29 are living at home. For those who are contributing to the care of a family member, they are out of pocket on average about $430 per month. So this isn't the easiest discussion to have, but planning for health issues is also important. So did you know that nearly half of retired Canadians stopped working earlier than expected? 33% reported that it was due to an unexpected health issue. So there is a lot that you can do. Here are the top 3 things, steps that you can take now. So create a plan long before an emergency happens. Have cash ready just in case, so typically between 4 and 12 months of income, and keep your financial documentation in one place. So let someone know where they are located.
Have a will.
Yes, definitely. And those are some of the slides that I've taken out are all around will, power of attorney.
We talked about that. Yeah, Kate's Board Soul and app did a session that I'll be posting up to my site.
Oh, amazing. I can't wait to see that. I'm going to just go over this slide. Yeah, so make sure if things have changed in your life that you are going to get an updated plan and that you kind of realize all the implications and ripple effects of those changes in your life. A question that we often get is, should I gift my children? How and when? According to a CIBC poll, 76% of Canadians would help their kids move out, get married, or move in with a partner, yet 68% either misunderstand or say that they don't know the tax or other financial implications of gifting. So here are some factors to consider. Gift when you're ready. In Canada, there are no rules limiting how much you can give, either in your lifetime or upon death. And while you can give as much as you wish, be sure to only give amounts that you are certain you won't need in your life. There are 2 main types of gifts. So inter vivos gifts means that gifts are made during your lifetime, or testamentary gifts, which are given upon death. By making gifts during your lifetime, you'll often be able to see your beneficiaries enjoying those gifts. It's important to consider the effect of the gift on your own retirement plan. So ask yourself, do I have enough money to afford the gift? If you're gifting to help them purchase their first home, there are certain things that you can do to protect that gift. And one of them is to either lend funds as a demand loan, potentially interest-free, or a traditional mortgage rather than an outright gift. And that may protect the amount of that gift in the event of a marital or relationship breakdown. Take into consideration the tax consequences of gifting, so cash versus real estate versus securities. And I think this is my last slide with lots of information here. Most Canadians are not prepared to transfer their wealth. So 51% do not have a will. 43% of Canadians have had the estate planning conversation with their family. 22% have taken steps to formalize an estate plan. So make sure you have one, make sure you communicate it, is basically my message here. Oh, no, there's one more. And I'm just going to quickly go over this because you've already talked about wills.
And yeah, and at the same time, like, we're having an open house with the lawyers from Kamloops here in Ashcroft on Tuesday, simply because we are finding that so many people don't have a will, or the importance of having one. And
Yes.
It was interesting when we did our conversation, how many sort of myths there are out there about, oh, my kids will be fine, family's going to take care of them if I die, and not realizing the legal implications of not having an assigned guardian, for an example, and that they can't make educational, financial, travel arrangements. And same, like, we're just finding so many people in that baby boomer generation are not talking with their loved ones about what their plans are as they're aging, and they're becoming depressed and isolated and trying to manage and figure things out on their own. So it was very important to me to sort of open up the conversation to touch on all these different things, the professionals out there to help you have these conversations, and then the resources that are available to start taking some of the stress away so that people can have better security in the future. So I think that these last few slides just demonstrate how it's all intertwined together, and that having a good team on your side, and maybe you want to share a little bit about your services, like if somebody wants to make an appointment or meet with you, do they come to Kamloops, Sun Peaks? Do you meet in person? Is there a cost that's associated? How does that work?
Yeah, so thank you. That's awesome. It's really nice to be able to provide this information. There is so much more, as you can tell just from the little conversations that we're having on the side. This is a huge, huge topic, and I love helping people through this. So this is myself and my team. I am a licensed fiduciary investment advisor. So that means that I am legally required to put the needs of my clients before mine. So I am legally required to give you the best possible advice for your situation, depending on, and that,
we have the same fiduciary duties as real estate practitioners as well. Like, our code of ethics always is first and foremost abiding by the real estate rules that are set out by the different authorities, which kind of interlink when it comes to finances, when it comes to investments and mortgages and everything. I know one of our connections is the fact that you did live in a rural location before, and that you do go over to Lillooet, I'm guessing, still. Meet with clients in a one-on-one, like, do you go in people's homes to have conversations with them, or only in an office setting?
So I have an office in Kamloops, and then I have an office in Lillooet, basically because I frequently go there to see clients. They can come in to see me into the office, or I sometimes go to people's homes if they feel comfortable with that. I've also met people at coffee shops. I have a lot of clients that I meet virtually as well. It's really however it works for the client. Many of my clients are really busy. They've got businesses. And so that virtual option is something that they love taking advantage of. And then I have my clients that we just love seeing each other in person. So we do that. And so it just depends on the situation. Many of the things that we do are easy to do virtually. Even signing documents, as you know, is so super easy to do. So yeah, I've got clients all over BC. And so this is myself and my team. We come in and just help with the planning, the investments, whether there's insurance needs, tax planning needs. We've got the professionals surrounding you. We all have our key part to play, and I don't pretend to know everything there is to know about all of the key pieces, right? And so that's why we bring a team together to really help the client as best we can.
Similar
So,
to like we refer out all the time, like if somebody wants to do commercial real estate, that's not my specialty. If it's something simple in a rural town, then maybe, but otherwise I'm going to refer off to the correct professional, and that's
the best for the client, right? So it's so important to not pretend that we are the expert on everything and know everything about all of those. So yeah, that's kind of it. I will just quickly.
I'm gonna hit you up with the other question, which was,
yeah,
how are you compensated?
Oh, okay. So most of the time, so there is no fee when I first meet with someone. So I always try to offer some sort of advice or help or recommendation or referral, regardless of if we work together. So I love to meet people, understand their life and what their needs are, and we kind of go from there. How I'm compensated is when I take over the investments. If the person decides to work with me, I handle all of the investments, and there is a fee for service on that, which is a percentage of the investments.
Right. Okay, that's understandable.